It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. And as promised, first things first, this Feedback Friday, I've closed the form for Song of Sparkle Muffin refunds. I put out multiple last calls and I let people know the form is going to be closed. This point, get them in now. They had 48 hours. So the form is closed. The final total in refunds, $4,710 was requested. There are two outstanding things I still have to process. The getting money to people who do not have PayPal. It takes a bit because of banks, and I have to make sure their bank will take a Canadian check. If they may have problems with Canadian checks, a lot of smaller US banks do. I get a US money order, I mail it to them. The post offices here have really short hours. And I went and discovered I can't send it registered mail anyway, so I have to put it in the mail and hope. So that has been a process. So there's still $857 to pay. A total of $3,853 have been paid out. But knowing what the target is, that 4710 allows me to figure out exactly how much can go to the crowdfund for Eileen's aunt's house. And that total is going to be around $1,300 Canadian, which is almost 19,000 pesos. I might just round it up to 19,000 pesos. I don't know why the round numbers in this, but obviously that's a pretty major chunk. That's like 18% of the total goal to save this house. And in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's a pretty small amount of money that we're trying to raise. Like, it's a lot if you don't have it. That's why I care so much about this. And ironically, it was Eileen's birthday this week. So, nice present for the family. So to those of you who, instead of asking for a refund, put it to the house, thank you. Obviously, if everybody asked for a refund, there wouldn't be enough money. So for those who had a giving spirit on this one and sent kind words, greatly appreciate it. To those who, gave themselves, because we do need to keep raising money. We're over like 60% ish. We're around there of goal now, which, the first half is the hardest. After that is like, all right, we get closer and closer and closer to goal, and momentum starts picking up again. So we can do this. We can. It's doable. And let me tell you, this has been a real lifeline for me, being able to do something that can actually make somebody's life better has been very helpful with the shit I've been going through. And I am going to tie everything in together. I didn't intend it to be this way, but people brought up, people really responded to the message on Monday's video about, you can only shame people so much before they go like, fuck you. And people talked about dealing with women at work who said, you only have a problem with me because I'm a woman. And one guy posted a comment. I loved this comment, that a female manager said that this was the response to his complaint about another woman. And he said, well, if I have a problem with women and that's the problem, then I would have a problem with you because you're a woman. And of course that wasn't the case. So point made. And I knew that by going public with Tuesday's video, I was going to come up on girl world bullshit. And this was really facing a trauma for me. It is the awareness that I was going into a real danger zone because I know the politics of girl world is whenever a woman says, I was afraid or I am afraid, you're supposed to pet their head and go, they're there, whatever you need. And that's something that manipulative people use. It's gotta be a credible fear standard. Not any fear. I mean, that's what gender criticals use, right? I mean, oh, a woman was afraid to use a bathroom with a trans person in it. It's like, did anything happen? No. Then why do I give a shit if a woman was afraid because she's a woman? That's pretty sexist. Like, how many things do we have to send men into that they're afraid? We send men into war even though we're afraid. Like, what the fuck? You know? What the fuck is this? Oh, a woman's afraid, therefore everything she says is right and good. That's just not true. And that makes a lot of things really messy, especially since I also am well aware with respectability politics and that I was full out violating respectability politics with going public. And going public is not my way. It isn't. And I part of the reason I changed up my approach here is I was starting to get the sense that people were taking advantage of me because I do not spill tea. I don't. And part of that I realized was a trauma response. I'm so used to not being believed that I just shut up. I don't get into it. I just eat the shit and take the fall and let people abuse me. And so it was a really big step for me to know that people were going to criticize me and some people were not going to believe me. And it doesn't look so far like everybody saying, no, you're lying. What the response is, well, it makes you both look bad. And as much as that sucks, like I said on Wednesday's video, it is true. That is the reality of this stuff, you know? Some people just go, well, this isn't dignified. And no, it's not dignified to come out here and admit I've been taken advantage of for nearly a year and a half. Does that feel good? No, it doesn't. You know? Was I duped? Yeah. Do I feel kind of stupid? Yeah. Am I fighting against that? Yeah. And, you know, knowing those things are going to be said makes the process of talking about this stuff in public scary. And again, does that mean I should be able to do everything I want? No. And people don't know the parts I held back. So they have no ability to judge whether I'm being fair or not on partial information. All I can say is I'm doing, you know, I am holding back certain details because I do believe they are personal and nothing is solved by that. And I knew I was going to take shit and be told I looked bad because let's face it, the way I approached this violated girl code. Instead of coming out here and acting like a victim, I was angry because that's how I felt and that's how I still feel. And people aren't supposed to get angry in public. They're supposed to go, I was lied to and I was taken advantage and I feel so bad and I feel so used and I was violated, right? That's what you're supposed to do. And I didn't. Somebody said, I'm not sure if that video was Inner Kratos or Inner Butcher. Yep, that's what it was. I was angry and full of rage, and the Butcher part was fuck it, this shit always happens, this is my lot in life. And that is why Billy Butcher is self-destructive, and that's why I see a lot of myself in that character, because his upbringing was very similar to mine, and the writers on The Boys really capture the self-destructive streak that upbringing cultivates, that you're really only good to be a sacrifice and be the asshole that people blame for things, so you might as well become that asshole. And I'm trying to come out of it, inspired in part by what they did with that character in The Boys. You know, just because people think you're an asshole doesn't mean you always have to prove them right, but sometimes you do have to be the asshole. And that's the conundrum I was faced with here, is that the expected response for a woman would have been fake. And I have never done the victim thing, because I've talked about this before, that the minute you start playing the victim, that's all people allow you to be. You're now someone who needs to be protected and not have to do anything hard. And, oh, we understand all your bad behavior is because of your victimhood. And so no criticism is valid because you're a victim, and we're supposed to believe victims, right? And there was a funny comment exchange, where I forget what it was, but somebody said, I thought you're supposed to believe all women, and someone else wrote back like 0 out of 10, try again, or something like that. I appreciated that support. But yeah, I know that the way to get maximum sympathy on this stuff is to come out and go, I was abused, and I was manipulated. Some people believe that's abuse, but really what I was I couldn't stay silent anymore. Part of my PTSD and what I have to manage, and this is again not looking for sympathy, this is just an explanation of why I did what I did. Part of my PTSD is the fact that those respectability politics of don't make trouble, don't ruin someone's life, oh, they're just a good person that did bad things, you know, don't make things hard for them, they had their reasons. Those instincts meant I was raised in a profoundly abusive childhood. People knew it was going on, but they couldn't do anything because, you know, emotional abuse alone at the time was, I still don't know if that alone is enough to remove a child from the home. And I didn't talk about the physical elements of the abuse. And even then, who knows? Parental rights, right? That's why I have a bad reaction to this day when people start going on about parental rights that I have to check. And so when I am silenced, when I can't talk about what's happened, it does produce a trauma response that I have to manage, because sometimes you can't responsibly talk about it. And there could be, there have been a lot of those of late that, you know, like I said, because they involve diagnosed mental health conditions, there is a certain element of medical privacy and dignity for the person, and certain understandings that you gotta balance this shit, right? And initially, as you saw in Wednesday's video, I was going to take the so-called high road again. You saw the start of the video. I was trying to be vague. And then I just couldn't do it. And I could have re-recorded that video to save face, right? But I chose not to because that wouldn't have been authentic. And I do think that the other side of the woman card, that idea of you're just supposed to believe women, women are oppressed, men are the oppressors, bullshit, is that no one is allowed to be angry in public anymore. And if men are angry in public, unless you're a guy like Trump, who's rich, and therefore fuck you. Any guy who's angry in public, he's dangerous and scary. That's not true. There's different ways of being angry. Any woman is angry in public, she's a bitch or unhinged. And so I knew that by putting out a video that was authentic and truthful, I made a mistake on one date, but I corrected it in the comments box, in the description box, sorry. But I knew that by being honest, I was gonna get, well, this makes you look bad. And like I said on Wednesday, sometimes the truth does make you look bad. That's why it's the truth. If you're trying to make yourself just look like an angel, that's not the unvarnished truth. And because the problem was lying, the way to free myself from that and the way to minimize the trauma response that comes from, one, being silent, two, feeling like this person lied and lied big, and I gave them the opportunity to tell it in their own words, to issue their own statement. And there were 3 lies in that statement. And the resistance to confession, the defiant resistance to confessing in public, which is, in my opinion, the only way when you've gotten caught lying, you don't come clean yourself, you get caught lying, the only way for anybody to trust you again is if you come out with all of it and you don't try to save yourself and you don't try to make yourself look good and you don't talk about how frightened you were or anything like that. No, you own it. A full confession with real remorse is the only way. And when someone will not take what I considered a very generous offer of it coming from her instead of me, that told me the lies were likely to continue and they would probably be at my expense about how I was a big bad abuser and oh poor her, and the woman card, right? Woman crying in public means people must automatically do something, and I don't subscribe to that. I think that participating in that makes me complicit in the shit that causes the pain and shame in the men I work with and the men who respond to Manly Mondays. And yeah, I clash with people sometimes, and to me that is a form of respect. You know, to me it's way better to come straight at somebody and go, you know what, I think you're completely full of shit here, and here's why you're wrong. Like, here's why you're completely off base. I think that actually shows respect to someone. I think it shows a certain amount of self-respect to be able to, first of all, fess up to something before you get caught. But also go, yeah, I lied and it was wrong. or I did something and it was wrong. And I'm really starting myself to wonder if I have been wrong to cover for so many people. And I realize it is in this, forgive me for this term, but it is true in this case. I have been caught up in white lady respectability politics of, oh no, you just don't talk about things in public. That's messy and it looks bad and it's undignified. And you know what? All of that is true. It's messy and undignified and it looks bad. Why aren't I allowed to make a mess every so often? Why am I not allowed to be undignified every so often, right? It looks bad. I don't care. Is it true, right? I owe it to you guys to come up here and tell you to apologize when I'm wrong and admit when I fucked up. And if I don't expect that from other people, I'm just allowing myself to be, everybody's bitch. And that's not fair to me. That's not fair to you guys who believe in me, even the people that criticize me. At least you're saying it to my face instead of behind my back. And this week really brought that into focus, right? I can argue you if you say it to my face, right? If you just go on Reddit and blah, 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 or you back channel, you go to other women in the space, in comics and video games and go, denounce her. Yeah, people have fucking done that. I have no respect for that shit. I'm somebody who deliberately called my show Lady Bits because it was originally going to be like a feminist guide to gaming instead of a gamer's guide to feminism. And ad people were like, no, feminism is toxic. Women stuff, girl power stuff, good. Feminism, toxic. No one wants to spend money on feminism. That is what I was told. But, so I'm like, all right, if anybody has a problem with the name Lady Bits, play on words, right? Bits as in data, bits as in, Lady Bits. If anybody was going to have a problem with the name, they weren't going to like the show. And to me, that's good branding. Because, self-select out. If this isn't your form of humor, you're really not going to like my takes on Baldo and Ivy Valentine. And you're really not going to like the corset in episode 10. So just check out now. And that's my belief on art. You advertise it, you promote it to the people who are going to like it. And if people don't like it, that's fine. When people insist something no longer has the right to exist, well, that's not fine. And I truly believe that people also have the right to know what a creator is like as a person and spend their money accordingly. And all I can do is inform people on that. I can't tell people how to spend their money. And in a lot of the situations I am aware of where a creator is behaving incredibly badly, it is not my story to tell. Joss Whedon, Kevin Spacey, a bunch of others. God, Derek Whibley from Sum 41 finally came forward and said he was groomed by his manager. That is consistent with everything I saw at the time regarding that whole thing. I believe Derek's telling the truth. They were not my story to tell. This was my story to tell. And precisely the reason you don't out someone on their story is because there are some people who are gonna be dicks about it. There are some people that are not gonna believe for various reasons. People have their reasons. Not all reasons are good. They have to be ready to take it. And to be honest, I wasn't quite sure that I was. Turned out I was. You know, part of it was that it was overwhelmingly supportive. People also had my back. You know, the fact that I was able to let people see the video before I put it up, because it didn't come out the way I'd originally intended it. And I said, you know, I want this to something that you guys can stand behind me on, not something where you're like, whoa, you went over the line. So that support was really good. But it was also just, it was an opportunity to practice what I preach and show I can do the hard thing and can open myself up to criticism and, you know, accept criticism. You know, and in this case, I could again play the victim on the criticism of, you're not believing, you know, stuff. No, like, the criticism, you know, you both look bad. It's true. Who looks worse is the whole point, right? Like, again, if I represented myself as a complete angel, that would be dishonest. And I think we have to talk about this stuff, right? Because especially with that assumed greater morality, assumed greater ethics in women, which is not true. Women give more lip service to ethics, but there's no evidence that women are more inherently moral than men. Some women are unethical, some women are ethical. Some men are unethical, some men are ethical, right? And really, what is it looks bad about? It's shame, right? That's saying you should be ashamed. I'm not. And the fact that this all started over, you know, an actress going, this makes me feel dehumanized. Well, okay, that's the way I would have worded it. She said it's dehumanizing, and that can be questioned. Like, Cynthia Erivo's statements can be discussed and challenged. That's part of being a public person. If she had just said, this makes me feel dehumanized, nobody can argue that. Saying something is inherently dehumanizing is open up for debate. But, you know, the fact that someone who I knew had taken cracks at me behind my back and my ability and my art, right? It's a job, but voice acting is a sort of art, getting it, you know. And I looked up, remember I said I did at least 4 versions? Wow, I misremembered. I did 12 refinements on that voice. 12 at the request of you know who. Oh, do it this, do it this, do it this, do it this. One is labeled more DreamWorks, less Disney, things like that. I took instruction. I made changes. And still cheap shot. And so the guy who did that was doing it again to someone else. And yeah, I took that personally, because who the hell are you to say someone talking in public, voicing their opinions, is painting a target on their back? That is saying, yay, bullying. Bullying's good. Bullying's like, that's the Kiwi Farms argument of bullying creates a social hierarchy. Bullying has a purpose, right? There are other ways to create a social hierarchy that aren't that. And no, that is not what I'm about. And the fact that I was accused of being unfair for saying, listen, I checked it because it was in text. You can relate, you can retract it, right? But it's like calling him out for taking the exact same shitty behavior where I was concerned. Oh, you're talking a big game about someone who got off their ass and tried to do something and it wasn't sufficiently good for you. I'm sorry, who are you? When have you ever tried to do anything remotely like this? And that made him feel unwelcome and hurt. Case made. Can't take what you dish out. And the fact that I was accused of being unfair, the fact that I was told that should have been kept private, the fact that, oh, well, I consider it private, even though it's on a invite-only Discord server that isn't open to the public, was accused of a personal attack, of a public shaming or a public attack. These are all shame tactics. The fact that she said, well, I think this should be kept private. If you don't, that's up to you. That was a fucking shame tactic. And that's what was in my head. All of a sudden it popped into my head while I was recording that video. And it's like, that's a manipulation. And that's trying to shame me into feeling like she's morally superior and more in control. And oh, if I want to do the undignified shit the bed unladylike thing, well, that's up to you. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. We're trusting our feelings. We're taking the guidance system off, right? Fuck it. We are doing this. I grew up at Jane and Finch. It came out. And that's exactly the point men hit with all this shame. They're tired of being told, just restrain yourself, just restrain yourself, just take another hit, just take another indignity, just be told what you are again by some woman who can't even tell you the fucking truth and will lie and lie and lie and lie. And then say she lied because she was afraid of you, even though you told her this thing that was actually the truth and you didn't know it. If it's actually you and not him, well, then I completely accept it. The thing I was mad about was that it was him. Oh no, she was so afraid she had to tell a totally useless lie. That's what men experience at the hands of some women. And I admit that's part of the reason why I'm screaming from the rafters on this one, because I would be a complete hypocrite to tell men to set boundaries about this sort of behavior and then cover it up myself. That's not fair. And so is this continuing self-sacrificing toxic Billy Butcher behavior? Yeah. Am I willing to look like an asshole to go, hey, heads up guys, forewarned is forearmed? Yeah, I am. Am I willing to look bad so that other people can make informed choices? Fuck yes, I am. And I just think that there are too many people, especially too many women with men's content stuff, saying the right things to grift money out of men, right? But it's not real. It's not authentic. And every time another one of those people is exposed, it further erodes trust. And trust, we have too much shame and not enough trust. And the one thing I really want people to know about me is if I look bad temporarily, it's in the service of trying to do good. And am I saying, oh no, I was totally self-sacrificing? No, I was angry. Part of me wanted to talk. Part of me was scared shitless, and I almost chickened out. I did. And it was the fact that I just talked about shame. Just talked about shame for Monday's video. And now it almost worked on me. It almost shut me up. It almost pushed me back down into my hole. It almost worked. And that showed how powerful shame is. And So I decided to blow it up. Am I tired? Yeah. Am I worn out? Yeah. Do I feel wrung out? Yeah. Am I hurt? Yeah. Am I still angry? Yeah. Do I regret it? No. And, I knew I wasn't going to catch everybody with it. I knew some people were going to be critical, but the people who weren't exceeded what I expected to receive in support and being believed. So that's really good. And you guys did that. And I think this shows that if you build a reputation based on saying the unpopular thing if you really believe it, telling the truth even when it means you're gonna eat shit in the short term, and showing respect for other people and really listening to other points of view, I think this shows it pays off, which hopefully gives other people who are struggling with issues of integrity and the fact that it people with integrity don't seem to come out on top. Hopefully it helps with that feeling. And I just want to say one more thing that's somewhat off topic, but I do think it's important that got lost in the other stuff. Some people on Monday's video said, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. I think she's a bad candidate. You have the right to that opinion. I'm not even American. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. And I was surprised that people took that approach, because the point was that Obama's messaging didn't work. It wasn't telling you who to vote for. You have the right to think whatever you want about Kamala Harris or any other political candidate. Expect to be challenged, right? As I expect to be challenged. Dismissed and challenged are not the same thing. But people have the right to vote for anybody they want to. They have the right to not vote for anybody they don't want to. And they have the right to not vote. And these are just facts. And that's why I don't quite understand why people, she's just a bad candidate. She's a bad candidate. Maybe she's just a bad candidate. That wasn't the point. And I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe that's some shame too. Like, fine, you think she's a bad candidate. Don't vote for her. What does this have to do with messaging involving men? Obviously something in those people's minds. And I'm kind of curious as to what. All right, so crowdfund house. If you like no bullshit, kick some bucks. They're pesos. $20 goes a long way. $5. Apparently you can't do $5. $10 goes a long way. Like, please help. We can do something good. We can actually do something that matters, that's real, and benefits an entire family, not just one lady. Spider-Man shit. Like, seriously, she's having to move every 2 weeks to stay with different relatives as space opens up. It's hard on the whole family. So please, if you got a couple bucks, I know money's tight right now, but if you got a couple bucks to kick towards it, link in the description box below. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.